Hold on. Say that again.
Oh, what an idiot.
It's death, taxes, and Austin Krell being late for a live stream. Those are the three
Terrible.
things you can count on in life.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
It's a guarantee. It's a guarantee. Welcome to the feed to Embiid. Ky Carlin and I have apparently hijacked this show.
It's ours now, Austin. I'm sorry.
It's ours now. I'm sorry.
We took it.
Yeah, you guys had a good run, but we had to take it over. I see Ky's got his gaming headset. What game are you playing lately?
The only game I really played, to be completely honest with you, was Call of Duty Cold War.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one that came out, I think, like in November or something like that. So.
Oh, wait, hold on. He's got an intro video. Let's play that.
Oh, he has an intro.
Embiid stepping back and stroking two. Bogdanovich thinking about a three. There it is. Yes!
See it again. No double team help, and Embiid takes it right to the rack.
Embiid, step back, jumper. You bet. There he is again. The Euro step there. Embiid getting Gobert in a fight.
It's a hijack. We hijacked the show.
That's crazy. That's actually a well done video you guys put together there. That's actually pretty good.
It's nice. It does guarantee that we'll never monetize this program, but sure, yeah, it's very nice.
Absolutely,
nice.
Absolutely.
Got to give it up. So we are here. I'm Jason Blevins. That's Ky Carlin. This is the feed to Embiid. Why are we here? I don't know.
I thought we were here for Austin. I mean, like Austin was the one.
Austin's not here. I'm sure he'll edit the audio so that when it goes out on iTunes, please follow, rate, subscribe, give him 5 stars. I'm sure he'll cut all this out.
He absolutely will, that little weasel.
But live, you got us right now till he arrives.
Yes, you do.
So what do you want to talk about, Ky?
I don't know. I mean, I was given a rundown by our gracious host, but I mean, the gracious host isn't here. So, I mean, I don't know.
We talk about anything we want until he gets here, right?
Yeah, you know what? I was actually thinking that, we'll talk about the GOAT, Svi Mikhailuk, now they're playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right. There he is.
There he is. Our gracious host has finally joined. Of course,
only I would show up late to my own podcast, but at least I wasn't too late this time.
All the comments we've seen so far have been very positive.
Exactly.
To this new change to the program.
What is your drink tonight? You texted me that you were going to have a cocktail with you.
Oh wait, no, I'm not showing anything because we don't give away advertising for free.
Yeah, see, I like that.
I like that. That's good. That's good business right there. So we do have a lot to talk about tonight. Ky and I we're talking beforehand about where things stand after the trade deadline, and we're going to start off with some George Hill commentary here. They acquired George Hill. It was, I think they sent out how many picks? Was it 4 picks?
4 second-round picks, yes.
4 second-round picks. So they send that out, and then they also give up 3 players. They give up Vinny P, they give up Tobrad, and they give up Terrence Ferguson, 2 of which, obviously, they never come close to cracking the rotation here.
And are both released. They are now free agents.
Yes. Yep. So they get back a quality rotation player in George Hill. I think people are going to continue to view this in the light of is he like a cat as he compared to Kyle Lowry, because that was the most obvious name. They were reportedly close to getting Kyle Lowry, and they don't get it done for whatever reason. But I gotta say, I think George Hill was a really solid acquisition.
You want to go first, Jason, or you want me to?
I'll go first because my take is probably not as interesting. I think it's solid. It's like you hit a single and you kept the inning alive.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like the way I see it is everybody was like so upset they didn't get Kyle Lowry. And I know Austin and I actually talked about this too, because I guess everybody on WYP was like, oh, Daryl Morey's a fraud. He didn't bring in, the big name. And it's like, yo, shut up. Like George Hill is a very, very good player. It's not like George Hill is some scrub. You know what I'm saying? Like he's going to come in here and fill a really important role.
Jason, go ahead.
I've got his cleaning glass up, so I'm diving into the stats, and they don't strike you like an elite point guard. So I think if people think he's an elite point guard, he's not. I think he's closer to Shake Milton than he is to CP3.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what George Hill is. I mean, but what you get there is, I think, what you need so much that second unit just to stabilize some things out is you need a guy that's going to give you steady ball handling and efficient scoring. I think Hill's making like above 60-something% of his twos, 39 from three. And the thing that I think is really important for him is assist to turnover ratio of like almost 3-1. So I mean, he's an efficient player. He doesn't do too much. He doesn't try to do too much. He's reliable. You can trust him in crunch time. I think he's going to get a lot of crunch time minutes.
I think it's 2-1 though. I don't think it's 3-1 this past season. I'll look again. Let me bring up his BREF stats.
I think for me,
I just don't think he's a pure floor general, which is not a bad thing because in this team, they're not really built to have one. He is at 3-1, but it's funny, his assist percentage versus his turnover percentage. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. It's interesting because in his raw numbers he is 3-1, but in his percentages he's like 2-1. I don't know how to interpret that on the fly.
You're saying like percentages, assist percentage compared to turnover percentage,
right?
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's a little bit of like a mind for me.
Yeah, I'm not ready to do that math on the live stream.
That's crazy. Well, I don't even know how to interpret that, but overall, I think it's a solid outcome for a team that I don't know how true it is that Daryl was like, people don't want to make trades with the Sixers or whatever. I think if they had the best offer on the market, you're gonna end up going for the Sixers. That's how it works. Business. Unless you're Daryl, Tillman Fertitta and you spite people and do that are really stupid. I tell you, it's going to be nearly impossible for that trade to have really any kind of like real value.
Yeah, I think it was a solid move. I think it gives them the ability to play really small, and you can play some really small ball lineups out there. Now, I don't personally believe that either Ben Simmons or Mike Scott are the type of rim protector you'd need to play super small.
Correct.
So it's getting dicey about who the options are left to pick up in the buyout market for big men. But I think it allows them to, man, if you want to space the floor, like they've got a lot of guys they can throw on the floor right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just sort of, I was kind of the mindset that this team needed basically anything that could give them some like veteran leadership off of the bench, like experience running and commandeering a second unit. Because Dwight Howard doesn't have experience in commandeering a second. I mean, he tries to commandeer it from time to time. It doesn't go too well, but he tries. But I think like George Hill is a highly respected, leader on the floor. And again, with this group, depth is important, but it's important only to the extent that like the three best players are all under the age of like 28, 29. You don't need depth that's going to play more than realistically 16 to 20 minutes a game, really. Like, but the starters are going to be playing 34 to 38 minutes in the playoffs at least. No one has any commentary on that.
Because I mean, like, you're not wrong. Just the way it's set up, it's like, and then this is what I was going to say about George Hill. It's like he's a two-way guard who, and I think Austin, you kind of alluded to it earlier. He's going to kind of stabilize things offensively because Shake Milton is the guy who's focused on scoring rather than running an offense. And Jason, you also alluded to it as well. It's not like Hill is like this, 100% complete floor general, but he is a guy who will come in and run things. And I feel like his playoff experience is going to just be so invaluable to this team, because another thing that Austin just mentioned was the fact that their stars are still very young between Ben, Joel, and the other guys on this roster. They're a relatively young team. So bringing in a guy like Hill, who has 127 career playoff games under his belt, he's been to the finals, he's been to the Eastern Conference Finals on multiple occasions. I feel like that's going to be like a really huge addition for them, and it's going to be an underrated addition for them. Like, just because he's not a big name like Kyle Lowry doesn't mean he's not going to help.
Yeah. What would have been your guys' limit to the asking price on Kyle Lowry?
I don't know. I think it's understandable they asked for Maxey, because I mean, again, like Toronto, it seems like they're entering a different phase of their franchise's history. Obviously, if they're willing to part with this guy, so you need a starting point to build for your next rebuild. I mean, Matisse is such a hard guy to like really kind of value, because I feel like he's so great defensively, and because he's so great defensively, the minute he gets any type of jump shot, all of a sudden he's your prototypical legitimate two-way 3-and-D player. So I feel like you really can't give up on that just yet. But but on the flip side, if you feel like you have a chance to win a championship with Kyle Lowry, I don't know. It's really hard to kind of come up with a realistic trade value, or trade package, I should say, for a guy like him at 35.
Yeah, I think that I'm on record as not thinking Matisse Thybulle is untouchable. I do think he's a great tradable asset. I would not have included him in a trade for any 34, 35-year-old guard. I just wouldn't have. And despite the fact that players are getting so good at extending their careers at the one position for sure, and the four, they're getting so good at really managing their body and their health that they are extending their playing careers. Just Thybulle is a bullet I think you got to keep in the chamber for a much bigger move. And Maxey, he's really tricky, because it just depends on whether he's got a point guard inside of him somewhere, and if he doesn't, then he should be traded.
Can I tell you? I think I get the sense that Tyrese Maxey will be very available this summer once those like off-season trade chips begin to fall, and certain guys come available. I think he will be very available come this summer.
Yeah, I think Shake will as well, and I think different teams will have different valuations of those two players, for sure.
Eddie's hopping in here. When did this?
Listen, that is your decision. This is your show, even though you were 10 minutes late. Your decision.
I was 3 minutes late. Okay, maybe
but you know how the math works. If you're 5 minutes early, you're late. So you're really 8 minutes late.
Okay,
which will round up to 10.
Wow. Justin is here. He is here to produce the show, he says, so we will always take that help whenever we can get it. Thank you, Justin. Now, so let's hop over to some of the other things that Ky and I are planning on talking about. Doc Rivers. So I got to tell you, I think as the season goes on, he's very much placed himself and kind of forced himself into the conversation for Coach of the Year. The team just keeps winning, with or without Embiid. Obviously, they lost against the Clippers. They've had a couple of easy games this road trip that have been sort of lucky because they didn't have to face their opponent's best pieces because they were out with injury or what have you. But the team is without its best player, its MVP, and they're still what are they? They've won 11 of 12. Not without him, but he's missed how many games since the start of the second half of the season? It's been what 9, and they've played what 11? They played 11 games.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, the record speaks for itself. And even when he is there, I mean, there were still what? There were I forget the total number of games they played with him. But the point of the matter is that they are 32-14. They're on pace to have at least their best season, I would say, winning percentage-wise, since 01-02, or since 00-01, I should say. And I think this team is playing in a way that we've never seen in this era. I think roles are really defined. I think there's accountability. I think they have really tight chemistry and camaraderie that wasn't really there with Brett. And I don't think that the camaraderie part of it is Brett Brown's fault necessarily, but I think that Doc is instilling a culture of this is how we're going to win basketball games.
Yeah, I think it's been businesslike and professional, and they haven't had wild swings even inside of games like they used to have. I just think it's really impressive watching a coach with this approach. Just manage the personalities and get everyone playing like professionals consistently.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ky?
I think honestly, when it comes to that, and Austin's kind of alluded to it, Doc Rivers really has kind of come in here, really changed everything. And I was actually asked something the other day, and I feel like I want to give you guys this on this as well. Do they have the same type of success right now with Brett Brown instead of Doc?
Doubtful.
No. Yeah, no.
Okay.
And I feel like it's because of the fact that Doc comes in and Doc demands respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, Doc comes in here and he demands respect. He gets a lot of guys to understand that this is your role. This is how you're going to play it. And I need you to understand that this is what we need from you. And when they had Tony Bradley, and obviously they were winning with Bradley there before the George Hill deal. Tony Bradley was having success not because he was trying to be Joel Embiid, but because he was being Tony Bradley. And I feel like, again, that's coaching. Like, Doc has got him to understand, like, listen, we just need you to do this. We don't need you to go for 50. We need you to just give us a double-double or something, 10 and 10, 12 and 10, something like that. Just be you. And I feel like that has kind of been like a really huge thing for their type of success this year. It's been great.
Yeah, there's a quote. I don't think it was Leonard Fournette, but it was someone in that ilk, and their quote was, "If it's 3rd and 1, I'll get you 3, and if it's 3rd and 8, I'll get you 3." Like, that is a guy that understands what he does. He understands his place in the universe. He embraces his role, and he goes and does it. And I think Doc is one of those guys that's just like, look, here's what makes you special. Here's what's going to keep you in the league. Here's the thing you need to do. Everything else is extra. Don't try to impress me. Do your job.
Right.
So there's a lot of value in just recognizing someone's special sauce and encouraging them to double down on their special sauce.
For sure. Can I tell you, I think with Doc, he's empowered them to play their best versions of themselves, their best ball. But he's also like maybe not in his colorful words, but you certainly get the vibe, like with Tobias, with Ben. He's like, yeah, cut that shit out. Like, no more 6-7 dribbles. Like, it's 1, 2, 3, go. You're that's it. It's laissez-faire in that he trusts them to make the right decisions and to play, and just play naturally. but he's also, I think, saying like, this is what we're not going to do. We're not going to do this. You're not going to.
And
Right.
to defend Brett Brown, that whole dribbles thing, the 6-7 dribbles versus the 2-3 dribbles that Tobias brought up this past week, that is a thing I heard in the coaching organization last year. And I heard it specifically about Mariel Shayok. So I want to defend the previous regime in that it's not that they didn't say these things, but back to your original point, commanding respect. There's one thing to say the right thing. There's another thing to have the authenticity and the gravitas to make your players really buy into it and believe it.
So what you're saying is that Brett Brown was telling them like, hey, well, like this is how we're not going to play, and they were kind of like, shrugging them off.
Well, in the heat of the moment, I think you have, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Not to quote Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and I think Doc, there's such an ease on the sidelines. You hear his voice constantly, especially before there were fans. You see him in the press conferences. Like, he knows who he is. He knows who he's not. He knows who he was as a player. There's just a comfort level that I think emanates out, and the players are comforted by it, so that when the wheels could come off, and they have come off in the past, they look over at him and the wheels don't come off. And I don't see the wheels coming off nearly as often.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Because I mean, to that point, like there are just so many times where, like in the past, where like if an opposing team was to go on a run, right? Like there were too many times when the Sixers would just kind of take the hit and not really hit back. There were certain occasions where they would, fight back and everything, but it wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? Like you've seen so many times this year under Doc that this team like will rally, like even when they're down. Like, listen, we're not out of it. We're not out of it. Just we got to be able to kind of keep fighting back and keep it going. And honestly, I see the comment. Sam Cassell also does deserve a lot of credit as well for his work with this team. I feel like the work he's done with Ben Simmons has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I don't know about is Dave Yorger. I
love you.
I don't know what his role is.
I think it's Jaeger.
Jaeger?
Yeah, I think it's just
so funny.
Jaeger.
What's his role? I don't know. I don't know exactly what he does.
He like coordinates.
He's there for offense.
Does he though?
No,
Because
Dave
I
is
see Dan
offense.
Burke.
Dave is offense? Okay.
I see Dan
Dave
Burke
is offense.
in the huddle.
Dave
for
is
defense.
offense. Dave is offense. Dan Burke is defense.
Okay. And Sam Cassell is the whisperer.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I remember it was like the day before the Chicago game, and Coach Rivers he wasn't feeling too well. And so they have Jaeger come in, and Ky and I are like, what is this going to be like? This dude was talking, having a good time. At the very end, and like this sweet, like Midwest type of like accent, he's like, sorry I talked too much, y'all. Have a good night. We're just like, what a pleasure. What a guy. Coach,
you gotta get back on defense.
As a dude who's from the Midwest, I appreciated that.
Yeah, he was like the sweetest guy.
Oh, jeez. Don't you know? We're gonna get back on D.
Oh, jeez.
No, I think he's from Iowa. I think he's like just like very, very much so from that upper middle quadrant, very conservative type of dude.
By the way, I was in the hotel last week, and Hoosiers came on after like an episode of Star Trek, like some random channel, some random hotel channel, and I just left it on. Not a good movie.
It's an okay movie.
I feel like they're much better basketball movies.
My favorite is still Coach Carter.
Great movie. Great movie.
Yeah, Coach Carter's my favorite. I mean, Space Jam is a classic. I don't care what anybody says.
Do you think Hoosiers gets the benefit of being like one of the first basketball movies to like treat it in a serious way, and therefore it didn't get judged against anything else?
I think so. That's probably it.
Yeah.
Listen. My hot take for this episode is that I'm not a big Space Jam guy.
Wash your mouth out with soap.
I loved He Got Game. Love that. Great movie.
Yeah, good.
I loved. I love Coach Carter. I'll tell you what. This is going to be embarrassing, and I'm going to get killed for this. One of my favorite basketball movies, because I think it was actually a good basketball movie, was what's that movie called?
What?
You gotta have the take.
Semi-pro.
Semi-pro.
Love that movie. I could watch that movie. I think I've watched that movie upwards of 16, 17 times.
I've seen that movie once, exactly once.
It's a great movie.
Movie is absolutely hilarious.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I think we can all agree that Teen Wolf is the best basketball movie.
Hold on, the jive turkey scene from Semi-Pro is just that whole scene is just hilarious.
Is that a Thanksgiving game?
No, it's just something. It's like a slang from the 70s or something, and it was just Will Ferrell and everything.
I think it's a racial thing that was popular back then. But
yeah, I guess so. It was just
did you guys ever watch? And you probably haven't, because I think it was an HBO movie called Goat. The story of something Manigault. He was called Goat.
Goat. Never heard of it.
It's a very good, very good movie.
They're playing
Don Cheadle is Goat.
They're playing Don Cheadle. They're playing.
Listen, I know Don Cheadle as James Rhodes from the MCU, playing Rhodey and then War Machine in the MCU.
When he was young, he one of his first movies was called Goat.
I'll have to look into it.
Anyway,
before anybody would call anyone else a goat.
What do you mean, man? That's V. Mikhailuk.
Svi Mikhailuk. What a name. Oklahoma City Thunder.
Earl Manigault. Earl Manigault. They made a movie about him.
So so real quick, do we have Doc is a coach of the year candidate?
I think he is, but I don't think he will win though.
I don't think he will either. I gotta say, I think it's going to go to Monty or something like that, because those are the teams that get the narratives. Everyone is well, we got the MVP, we got the defensive player of the year, we got the coach of the year. I'm like, the narratives say that the Sixers won't win one award. Right,
and I don't know. The way I see it is and you just mentioned Monty. I mean, the Phoenix Suns, they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. So if the Suns can get in, then I feel like you do have to kind of give a lot of credit to Monty. Question: does Tom Thibodeau get any type of?
I think he should.
Coach of the year, type of. He won't win it, but do you feel like he kind of should at least deserve some credit?
I do.
What about you, Jason?
I think Tom Thibodeau is able to take a pile of chicken shit and turn it into a chicken sandwich. But what he can't do is turn it into a 28-day dry-aged cut of beef. So
yeah. I mean,
how do you call it coach of the year when is that team getting out of the first round of the playoffs?
No. I mean, I will say this. How about depending on the matchup? I think right now, if the season ended today, they would actually play the Charlotte Hornets round one. And Charlotte's obviously going to be missing LaMelo Ball.
I don't know about that anymore because he's supposed to be back.
Yeah, I did see that. I saw he can come back probably the first week of May or something like that. But let's just say LaMelo can't go, right? And I think I would take the Knicks over to beat the Hornets in round one if that would be the matchup. I mean, obviously there's still a ton of basketball left to be played.
Yeah, I don't. That would be wild.
Can we just acknowledge what a world it'll be if the Sixers have a second up with the Charlotte Hornets?
I will say
the Knicks. There you see the Thibodeau Knicks right there.
I will say this: if they play the Charlotte, if it's Sixers Hornets round two, we can take a permanent marker and put the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I think I agree with that. I believe that the Hornets would win a single game in that series.
No, I don't think they will either. To be honest with you, I think Philadelphia sweep them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to see it.
Because the Hornets. The Hornets actually haven't won a playoff series since 2002. Off the top of my head,
I think they have 3 playoff wins in my existence of watching basketball,
and that was 2016.
Yeah,
was it?
Yeah, they lost. They lost that 7 games to
the Heat.
Marky, I love you, and I appreciate you being on. But every team has dealt with this.
Yeah, every team has
dealt with this.
It is what it is.
You go around the league, and every team you can see on this West Coast trip. You could argue that the Sixers really haven't played a team at full strength on this trip.
I would agree. Let's go over to this road trip. So they have they're 3-1 now. They beat the Knicks on a miracle. That Julius Randle shot was like 85% of the way down and pops out. And that was just a really poorly played game. Like that Knicks team is tough, as we were saying. That's a one of the better Knicks teams I think I've seen in the last decade. But the Sixers did not play like anywhere near to the standard they've established for themselves in that game. And then they go to
Golden State.
That Golden State isn't bad. They're frisky. They were down 24 in the first quarter, and they ended up taking like a 7-point lead in that game.
Yeah, good team. Thibodeau would be a great Penguin. You're absolutely right. He would be.
I'm touching that one. Wow, that's brutal.
Who guards the Joker? That's a good question.
Tomorrow night? Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, I was thinking we were still talking about comic books.
Can I?
Oh. I mean.
I don't even know. We go with that one.
I would probably put Ben Simmons on the Joker.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you do. You can. So who's going to attack the rim on Denver?
On Denver, probably Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I'd live with Aaron Gordon.
Right? I mean, Aaron Gordon, the one guy on the team that would probably be the slashers.
So if you think about it that way, that's a really great trade for Denver because we just went through a quick thought exercise and said, yeah, I can live with not having a rim protector. And then you say, well, Aaron Gordon will just dunk on you all night. And you say, ooh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm still not like really a big Aaron Gordon guy. I never really have been. Like it's kind of like, okay, you can dunk. Okay, cool. But just I look at Aaron Gordon and I feel like he would be an okay fit in Denver just because they won't ask him to do as much as what the Magic were asking of him. You know, the Magic were asking him to literally be the star face of their franchise, him and Nikola Vucevic. And now that Gordon's in Denver, I feel like it's a really good addition, and I feel like he can help the Nuggets really make a deep run in the playoffs. And listen, with Anthony Davis's injury, guys, I don't know if the Lakers are a slam dunk pick to come out of the West anymore.
I thought he was returning to basketball activities this week.
I heard Frank Vogel the other day say something about like how he's going to be out for a little bit longer. So I'm not so sure.
I gotta tell you, they're gonna rest him as long as they need to be sure that he's ready for the playoffs because they will breeze through that entire conference. I don't listen. I'm impressed with what Utah has done this year.
Me too, but still Utah.
Yeah, exactly. Then again, it's still like the Sixers are still the Sixers. Like
that's a good point too. That is a good point. I mean, listen, Brooklyn is still my pick. Like Brooklyn has been my pick all season, and I feel like with these moves lately with Griffin and Aldridge, that just kind of confirms it a little bit more for me. Brooklyn's still my pick.
Like what? We'll get into that a little more. But did you guys kind of like notice that Doc brushed over the fact that they blew a 24-point lead in the first quarter of that Golden State game? He was just sort of like, yeah, they came back. I was like, wait.
Well, because I mean, like the way I see it is, it's like they won the game, so it was like, who cares? We won. So like that's always been Doc's like attitude. Doc's like, as long as we win, I don't care. You know, like that's just kind of Doc's attitude.
And I guess like players that I think it kind of starts to fall on deaf ears if players are like, we're winning and yet he's still kicking our asses. So I mean, I guess that makes sense. But I still think there needs to be an element of accountability. Like, why the hell are you guys blowing it 24 points?
By the way, this comment that Justin threw up here, our producer extraordinaire, Justin Persichetti, update from 326. Anthony Davis was re-examined by team medical staff earlier this evening. Continues to progress in his recovery. It's been clear to advance his on-court work. Additional updates will be given when appropriate. Do either of you guys want to read the text we got about George Hill? And
I don't get texts.
All right. Well, here's the. Let me just read the from Saturday.
That'll be next.
Please see the following updates on Joel Embiid and George Hill. Joel has continued to progress well through his rehabilitation program. He has resumed on-court activities while ramping up his conditioning. The next update on status will be provided as appropriate. It's virtually word for word. And now here's George Hill. George Hill is out with the right thumb surgery, which we should talk about because it's a shooting hand thumb. He will resume on-court basketball activities in the coming days. And the next update on his status will be provided as appropriate. It's like word for word. This is like, is this coming out of the NBA office or is this like out of PR school 101? It's like word for word what the Anthony Davis update is.
Right. I mean, I think George Hill probably play in like a week or maybe 2 weeks tops. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
worried about his thumb on his shooting hand?
No.
Okay, make the argument for George Hill with me. Why he's going to help them.
Didn't we already go over this earlier?
Yeah, what?
I want you to give it in one sentence. What's the argument?
He's a veteran point guard who is a two-way player, like a legitimate one.
Okay, because that's not what everybody said when the trade happened. Everybody pointed to his 3-point shooting percentage. And
right.
Yeah, but it's a thumb on his shooting hand.
That could be problematic.
Listen, the way it was set up, like the way Daryl described it. Remember, Daryl said it was just an issue to correct something that was bothering him. Now that the thing is over, he'll be good. I mean, it obviously remains to be seen, but just like I don't know, like I'm not really too concerned by it, you know, because I mean, I talked to a couple of Thunder beat writers after the trade was made, and they basically made it sound like Hill could have played the final 2 weeks in OKC before being traded. But obviously they weren't going to do that because they're a rebuilding team and they're beginning to focus on Teo Maledon and Ty Jerome.
Right. So that's the question is like, is he in the gym shooting and do the Sixers have access to see that shot? Because a thumb is important. I don't care what anybody says. I see it in the comments saying it's not important.
The thumb is important. Listen, the thumb is important. Of course it is.
The thumb is important, like the steering wheel is important to a car.
But like what? I mean, it's the difference between the rotation going this way or maybe that way, right? And that's
of course the thumb you have of all fingers you need when shooting a basketball. Thumb is probably the second or third most important finger. Like the pinky, you don't really need as much, but the thumb, you
right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. We are assuming a healthy Hill. Yeah. And from everything you read and everything we've been told, I mean, we've been there, Marky, so we haven't learned anything else. But you know, I think there's some risk, and part of the job of a GM is to make calculated risks based on probabilities, and it is there is some risk, but I think that overall it's a good trade. We don't need to rehash it. I do think we need to go back though. Who's the third string center, and who's the backup center or the starting center?
That's a great
when your other guys gets ejected or isn't available.
That's a great segue. So the buyout market. You guys want to talk about that now or at the end?
That's up to you, man. It's your show.
Your show.
All right, we'll do it at the end because we only have about 20 minutes left. Do that at the end. So the Lakers game. Let's just finish up these topics here. Lakers game. That Lakers team is tough, I think, but they were like the Sixers could have blown their doors off. And it was like another game that kind of gives you some pause. Like, why are they only winning this game by? They had a 16-point lead. They only win by 10. They were up by 4 with like a minute left in it.
Yeah, I think they were only up 6. Like the point is the Lakers cut that thing down. Yeah.
So those are trends that you want to nip in the bud because if that happens in the playoffs and you lose that game, that's a critical blow. Like you saw against the Celtics in 2017 or 18, whatever that series was. But Dwight gets ejected with the thing with Montrez. I hadn't thought about the fact that Montrez got the contract in LA. That's why Dwight wasn't of interest to them anymore, and then he dipped to Philly. So I could see why he'd have a little bit of pent up rage, but he has to be smarter than that.
He absolutely does. And Dwight said it today at practice. He was like, "Listen, I need to be better. I got to be better. I can't get any more texts." And I mean, especially in a time like right now, you know what I'm saying? When you got no bigs other than you, and you got to turn to Mike Scott to be your starting center at the moment. And B-Ball Paul, who we all love B-Ball Paul, but he can't be playing center in the NBA right now. Not yet. He still doesn't even know the defensive rotations just yet. So Dwight definitely has got to be better. He has.
About that, you're like these Philly fans. They just don't get it.
Right. They don't get it. I'm so sick of people oh, Paul Reed needs to start. No, he shouldn't start. Relax. He's in a good role right now. Just let him learn. It's so annoying.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think Daryl, Moneyball when Billy Bean trades away the Carlos Pena, he trades with Carlos Pena. That way they have to play somebody else at first that works better with the team. I think that's what that trade was with Vinny P and Tony Bradley. Obviously, it was a need they filled, but I think he was sort of you're not going to play these guys over Paul Reed because I'm not going to give you any guys to play. This is what you're going to do. You're going to play these guys. I think that was.
I mean, my question to Daryl was exactly that question without asking it, right? It's what's your tolerance for having a center who can guard in space versus a traditional drop coverage big? I gave him every opportunity to say, we really like B-Ball Paul. He didn't say that. I think, and I even asked the follow-up, okay, but long-term, what is it you see behind Joel? Are you looking at that type of big? And he hedged on it. So I really do think they gambled on their ability to sign one of these buyout guys. And I think so far they haven't hit on one of those gambles.
Yeah. I have a little bit of intel there that we'll talk about on that market. But then they played the Clippers. That Clippers team, their rotations in that game were really poor. I thought they usually when you give up a lot of corner threes that are open, it's because your help rotations on defense are tragic. And I thought they didn't have a ton of energy in the defensive end of the floor. And the Clippers, once they seized control, it was pretty much down 10, down 13, down 7, down 10, down 13, down 7 until the Clippers kind of took it over. But I thought Doc said it all. They let the Clippers get into the paint and create those rotational blunders, and then from there it was kind of the Sixers. They gave up a lot of. LA only made 11 threes in that game, but it felt like they made a lot more just because they were open shots. Kawhi was getting open looks from 3. Paul George was getting open looks. Marcus Morris was getting open looks. I gotta tell you that Luke Kennard contract is going to be awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
$16 million per year they have to pay.
What happened? What happened to him?
Shout out to Troy Weaver for getting off of that.
Yeah. He just had he has bad knees, but I mean, he cannot stay in the rotation. He was out of the rotation.
Yeah. Yeah, here's how I saw the other night. The Sixers they only had one bad quarter. Like when you look back at that game, they had a really bad third quarter. I think they shot 6 for 16 from the floor in the third. They were 0 for 6 from deep, and I think they committed a couple of turnovers, while the Clippers were 5 for 9 from deep in the third, and I think they shot 10 for 16, something like that. So the third quarter really did them in, and at the end of the day, they only lost by 10, despite losing Dwight early, despite 4 technical fouls, and just everybody kind of losing their cool. They were right there in that game. It wasn't like they got blown out or anything. And again, that goes back to what we were saying earlier. Doc really has these guys playing really good basketball. It's definitely interesting to watch.
Yeah, because I worry about that middle off day in LA, and I mentioned it the other night. Because so many of these guys live in Los Angeles in the off season, there's a lot of potential to sort of scatter. But it felt like early in that game, they were really playing together. They were playing fast. I thought their pace in the first half was really fast. But they're well into a road trip. How long have they been on the West Coast now?
They have been on the West Coast now for I think a week.
Yeah, that's long. That's a long time.
And I mean, listen, like this entire road trip is long. Remember, they haven't played at home since March 20th. Like we're sitting here today recording this podcast. It's March 29th, and they're not coming back home until April 3rd. So, I mean, this is a long, long road trip. And then they only come home for these 2 games this weekend against Minnesota and Memphis. And then they go back out on the road. I think they play Boston, New Orleans. They play Oklahoma City. And I forget the 4th game. But that's 10 road games out of 12. And that's rough.
Oklahoma City game, isn't that like a makeup from when they got canceled earlier in the season from the COVID?
Yeah, exactly. That's the game that got postponed back in January. So.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't overreact to a second half fade during a couple of the West Coast trips. I was gone for 3 nights last week. I was exhausted Friday night from just going home, and that was only 3 nights in a hotel. So I wouldn't overreact to anything that happens at this time of year. I think we're in the dog days of the season anyway. Like these are the doldrums where I watch a game right now and I'm like, what am I going to learn in this game about this team? We're not going to learn anything new right now.
No, but that's why you watch, I guess, because we're out of our fucking minds and we need something to watch. We cover the team, of course. One last thing before we get to the buyouts. I do kind of like that they're using Ben in that short roll thing with the pick and roll. Like they're getting another ball handler on that court, and they're using Ben as more like the screener and diver. And out of the short roll, he's been really effective. He's pushing the guys to the corner, and he's putting pressure on the lane. And if they sag off of him, okay, he's just going to go up for it, and you're either going to foul him or he's going to dunk it. Or if they play up on him, he's going to go around you. Or if the help comes over, he's kicking to a shooter. I mean, we saw it a couple times in LA. I think he has to add a couple counter moves to that, which will come, down the line once he gets used to it more. But I think that's a really viable solution for the playoffs when the thing slows down.
All right. Marky, I just want to address that question. Like, listen, that comment, not a question, but like a healthy Sixers team, I think will give a healthy Nets team a 7-game series. Like, I think Sixers Nets with both teams fully healthy would go 7 games. The reason why I'm picking Brooklyn is because with the game on the line and, there's 10 seconds left, game tied or whatever, the Nets can turn to Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving or James Harden. 3 guys who have proven that they are clutch performers. We all remember Kyrie's shot in Game 7 in 2016. We all remember Kevin Durant pretty much destroying the Cavaliers in both 2017 and 2018 in the finals. even during the Western Conference portion of the playoffs before those NBA Finals runs, Durant would just go up there and just destroy anybody in his path. So I think the biggest question with Brooklyn is going to be kind of like how are all three of them going to look come playoff time. But I think it's going to be way too much. I just think it's going to be way too much with Durant, Irving, and Harden. Just at the end of the day, I don't think the Sixers are going to have enough, to match up. That's just me.
Yeah, I still want to see what they look like in the playoffs, both teams.
Yeah.
But if we're just going to judge off of this, I'm probably pushing I'm putting my money on probably Nets in 6.
I would say 7 because Brooklyn doesn't have anybody to guard Joel. Joel will destroy DeAndre Jordan. He'll destroy LaMarcus Aldridge. He'll destroy Blake Griffin. I mean, that's Joel will throw this team on his back and, get them to that point. Just at that point, it's going to be all about can they close it out. And I've kind of said this before. I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine. LaMarcus Aldridge from mid-range is automatic. If you get him into a pick and pop with James Harden, I mean, my God, all Aldridge is going to do is sit there and pick you apart from mid-range. And let's not forget about Joe Harris either. Joe Harris is kind of the forgotten man on this team right now. Joe Harris will sneakily give you 20 points just off 3-pointers.
Love Joe Harris.
Right. Joe Harris is another guy. So just for me, it's just Brooklyn's too tough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to the defensive matchups. They don't have anybody for Embiid. I guess Ben plays the hotter of Durant and Harden on any given night. But I just think that there's a lot of firepower on that Brooklyn end of things. And they have, two guys that have won, have hit massive shots in the finals to help win championships.
Right.
And the Sixers don't have a guy that's made it to the conference finals yet. So right now my pick is probably going to be Nets in 6 if I had to guess it. But we shall see. That's why they play the series. I will say this: I'm not concerned. If you're gonna die on LaMarcus Aldridge making long twos island, okay, that's it.
Yeah, I think those are bridge minutes. And here's what I will say, because I want to check the rules of the feed to Embiid. Are we allowed to say anything bad about Ben Simmons on this site or on this show, or is it a gas him up only rule?
Go for it.
All right. So I'm going to say something really nice about him and I'm going to be tough on him. So I think, how do you shut down Ben Simmons? What are you worried about with Ben Simmons? It's very clearly the book is out that you collapse, you build a wall around about 6 to 8 feet from the rim, and you let him drive into that, you let him pick up his dribble and either finish inefficiently or throw a pick 6 to an outlet, right? That's the book on him. But the Nets don't really have the kind of guys that could play that type of defense against Ben Simmons. They don't actually have that, really.
They don't have physical bodies.
They don't have guys that would really they're not like the Toronto Raptors or the Celtics, where they're always going to be in the right spot at the right time.
I feel like the only guy on Brooklyn's roster, to that point that Jason's making, the only guy on Brooklyn's roster who is even rough and tough like that and physical is probably Bruce Brown. And he's not 6'10". Bruce Brown is right. 6'5", 6'6".
I love Bruce Brown.
So if you think about it like a chess match where you feed Embiid down low, you get DeAndre Jordan into foul trouble early. That removes the DeAndre Jordan chess piece from the board, and now Ben Simmons can get downhill against the Nets. And now you've essentially created pressure points in exactly where those Nets are going to be weak. Now, can you stop them on the other end, or do you have to win, 125 to 123? Maybe. And I do think that the Nets are building to play a much slower pace. So I think the final scores will probably be low. They probably want to get to the last 2 minutes and then beat you in the final 2 minutes. And I think that is a real major concern. They have 3 guys that can beat you down the stretch.
They do.
Right.
But they don't have a guy. They don't even have one guy that I'm like, well, he takes Ben Simmons off the board offensively. And I think Toronto does. I think the Celtics do have those kind of guys or that kind of collective effort.
Okay, but who on the Celtics is doing that? I mean, maybe Jaylen Brown.
They do it collectively, though. They do those rotations so well. It's like they have a string tied to each other. They're so good.
Yeah.
And so they're able to just create a wall in front of him. But I don't see the Nets being able to do that. So I think your stars on the Sixers are going to look like stars in that series. And your Nets stars are going to look like stars as well because they're just each of them are unstoppable in their own right. I think it will be a fascinating, epic series when it comes.
Now,
and you know what? I got real quick, Austin, before we move on, I got one more concern about Brooklyn. It's just like if you're the Sixers and you probably put Ben on James Harden, right? You probably put Tobias on Durant, and then at that point, who are you putting on Kyrie? Like, is it going to be George Hill? Is it going to be Matisse Thybulle? Like who?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter because I think what the Nets will do is just they will just screen until they get the right matchup. So they're going to hunt whoever your weakest link is, and they're going to put the guy that it's his turn on your weakest link. And I think that's where George Hill helps them a little bit because I think there's a lot of times where Seth Curry is going to be the weakest link, and George Hill is a slight upgrade defensively from Seth Curry.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. All right.
And I think they're going to hunt matchups like all night.
Yo, Austin just wants to talk about the buyout market.
We have 3 minutes left.
All right, what do you know, and when did you know it, Austin Crowell?
Exactly. So Jason and I are thinking about like an episode of the pod where we just talk about burner accounts. There have been a lot of noisy, unidentifiable accounts in the DMs lately, and it's been a lot of talk about DeMarcus Cousins, Damian Jones, Dwayne Dedmon, and Kelly Olynyk. Those are the 4 names that I think that I think could be future Sixers or future former Sixers. Yeah.
I like Dwayne Dedmon. I like the Dwayne Dedmon suggestion you just made. I like Dedmon a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how does he help you in a net series? That's where I keep coming back to.
I feel like he's a better positional defender than like a rim protector, obviously. But I mean, like I feel like Dedmon could help in that series a little bit. He also can stretch out the floor and he can shoot a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of concern with like how would the interaction or the chemistry be like between Dwight, Joe, and Boogie. But I think that's a viable possibility because like he is in theory the best big man available and he stretches the floor a little bit. I just think like the simple fact of the matter is that this buyout market is guys, they want big roles so that way they can showcase themselves for their next big contract. No one wants a long-term deal. No one wants a short-term deal if they can help it. They want to lock up those 2-3 year deals like Ilyasova did with the Bucks after he balled out in Philly the second time, like Bellinelli did with San Antonio when he balled out in Philly the first time. If you're signing there to sit at the end of the bench and be the situational center, that's not attractive to a lot of guys. I think the stretch 4 market's going to be something that they push. I don't know. Maybe like they have visions of like trying to play Dedmon as a stretch 4, or like maybe you use Kelly Olynyk in that like small ball center idea. But I have a suspicion that they're going to do something.
Can you do the Philly fans have the tolerance to have a straight up NBA villain on their team. Because
Kelly?
Kelly Olynyk, you could make a real argument.
Kelly
He's a
Olynyk.
useful chess piece in a net series as an agitator, as a potential, get double T's on one of their stars. But he's a villain. He's like a punchable face guy. Nobody likes Kelly Olynyk.
Well, I'll tell you this: my dad can't stand Kelly Olynyk.
Nobody can stand Kelly Olynyk. That's sort of his brand.
Come on, man. Kelly Olynyk did nothing to nobody.
He
Kelly
basically
Olynyk literally ended Kevin Love's career.
He pretty much did.
Kevin Love hasn't been the same since then.
Yeah, I don't think he has been the same.
I think he's played 58 minutes this season. He's owed like $60 million over the next 2 years.
I know, it's crazy. Remember, Kevin Love actually wasn't even all that great on Cleveland's championship run to the finals. Yeah, he really wasn't all that great. I remember he had an okay Eastern Conference Finals against Toronto. The only time he struggled was when they went on the road to Toronto. And just I don't know. Yeah, you know what? You got a point there, Austin. That might be it.
What?
Maybe Kelly Olynyk just ruined Kevin Love's career.
He did. He definitely did.
Listen. I wish I had Kevin Love's age.
He was bought out. Yeah. Now, if Kevin Love was bought out, he wasn't bought out yesterday, right?
He wasn't bought out. Kelly.
I know.
Yeah, Olynyk wasn't bought out.
Olynyk has not been bought out yet.
No, he's actually quite the opposite. He's starting tonight with the Rockets.
He starts for them. He starts for the Rockets.
Never mind. Wow.
So close. We were so close there. But I just think that they're waiting for it to see what names leave. I wouldn't be surprised if no. I will ask him some very hard questions. I gotta stand up.
Me too.
I gotta stand up to people.
100%. That would be if anybody thinks Philly media is tough, they haven't seen tough yet. Until they try to bring a guy like that in.
Exactly.
They haven't seen the half of it. By the way, was Daryl Morey buttering us up or what the other night?
Oh, yeah, right. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Send me a couple of those Red Bull packages or whatever, new gear, the shoes, whatever. Roll.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want. I also think that they might they're going to monitor the Magic. Terrence Ross could be a name that on the wing that just gives you some shot creation, a little bit of depth. Otto Porter Jr. I think would be interesting for them.
I think it would be hugely interesting. Is there any thought that he's getting bought out?
I think they're gonna just see what he brings. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens in a couple of weeks. But I do get the sense that there would be some interest on the Sixers front.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that would be forget about the fact that you don't have a third big. Otto Porter would be a great addition.
Yeah. So we shall see. Ky, what do you got? Parting shots.
I got any final thoughts here? Final thoughts? All right. Real quick. Me and Jason, when we were in Florida, we actually had this little debate about who has the better future between the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Detroit Pistons, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? And I real quick just want to touch on it. Just only take a minute or two, whatever. But Austin, I wanted to get your take. Who's got the better future? Cleveland, Minnesota, or Detroit?
Not Detroit. I think Detroit's last.
Now, see, Jason and I kind of had Detroit near the top.
I think they're last, and here's why. At least the Timberwolves, you have two players that you can seem to have it. They seem to have something figured out there with Cat and Anthony Edwards. Even though he's not efficient yet, I still like what Anthony Edwards brings athletically and from a shooting standpoint. So I look forward to see how he plays along. I think getting Ryan Saunders out of there was good. But the Cavaliers, they're already getting better. I think Colin Sexton's getting better. I do like the pieces I like some of the pieces they have there as well. Pistons, I was low on What's the kid's name that they drafted?
Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes. Which one?
Killian Hayes. I was
Okay.
low on Killian Hayes. The jury's still very much out on him. They're paying Mason Plumlee like $8 million a year for the next 3 years.
I know that's a bad part.
The hope for the future is that like Sadiq Bey really hits, because I think he's going to be a good player.
I think Sadiq Bey will be a good player. I think Jeremy Grant is outplaying his contract already, which I didn't think Grant was ever going to live up to that, even live up to that deal. I think Jeremy Grant's playing well. I think Dwayne Casey is the right coach for a young rebuilding team. Because even when you go back to his days with Toronto, like the Raptors were still winning games and being successful. But oh God. Mason Plumlee, let's go to work. Plum dog.
Look at that. Oh, it's a little in and out. Oh, he buckles. Oh.
At the end of the day, I do agree with you guys that probably Cleveland probably has, in my opinion, right now, like the best future out of the three of them. But then I would say Detroit second and Minnesota last, just because I feel like Minnesota just continues to make every wrong decision, like throughout this entire process, like whenever they rebuild. And I like Detroit's move so far, getting rid of Kennard, something we talked about earlier, just moving off his contract, finally buying out Blake Griffin, finally just kind of really moving forward with this rebuild. And I mean, if the Pistons get like a top pick and get after Cade Cunningham, then that kind of makes up for the mistake of maybe going after Killian Hayes, you know?
I gotta tell you, Cade's the real deal. But the one thing that's like that gives me pause for saying the Wolves, because I think the Wolves actually have some star power there already.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that they traded Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell, and they gave up 2 first-round picks too.
It is what it is.
That is a fireable offense.
Well, that's what I'm saying about the Timberwolves. It's just like they have a lot of talent. Obviously, you mentioned Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, even though they gave up way too much for him, he's still a good player. And Cat, they got 3 pretty good pieces there. And I like Jaden McDaniels, too, and I like the other pieces on that roster. But it's like Minnesota just continues to just make wrong mistake after bad mistake after bad mistake after bad mistake. And it's like I don't trust them at all. Like I wouldn't – you could give the Timberwolves – Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, and I still wouldn't pick them to win anything. Like I still wouldn't pick them because they're Minnesota, you know. So yeah,
I can't believe that they gave they traded for D'Angelo Russell on a max contract. But can I tell you, guys, I wouldn't be surprised if like they trade Jeremy Grant at the deadline next year. The Pistons.
I think they could. Yeah,
no, I think he's a face of the franchise and face of the culture. So I don't agree.
You got a long way to go if he's the face of the franchise then, because
definitely has a long way to go. Yeah,
I think Minnesota, for a talented front office, has more pieces to work with, more assets to work with, but they're just not talented. They're bad at the top, and what strikes me is that they just don't know how to build a program. Because I like Ryan Saunders. I like their players in a vacuum, with the exception of D'Angelo Russell, who I think is fake good.
Wow.
I mean, I think he's actually just not good, but like impressively not good.
Wow.
And I worry that Anthony Edwards, we'll see. You know, he might be fine, but. It's a rookie, but I'm not buying the Anthony Edwards thing myself. And I just think it's the Sports Center effect.
Not yet.
Yeah, no, I know, but I do think there's a Sports Center effect to how we value players. If they make LaMelo got this early in the season where, you know, you make 2 great plays in 100 possessions and you're on Sports Center. And then you look at their number and LaMelo early in the year and Anthony Edwards, they're on Sports Center. And then you look at the box score and they went 2 for 11. Well, both of those 2 made shots are on Sports Center.
They look cool, though. They look
cool. And there was a really valid ESPN debate about what will matter more. You know, some ex really good player or Anthony Edwards' dunk on the baseline in a game that he shot like 4 for 11. And the argument was no one will care about this very solid, 25, 8 and 8 night, but that will be a highlight we play for 20 years. And there's some truth to it, but when it comes to like getting to the playoffs and winning a playoff series, fake good guys, like impressively bad guys, are just a recipe for early exits, even if you make it.
Fair enough. Jason, any parting shots?
That's pretty tough shot on D'Angelo Russell.
Wow.
It's impressively harmful.
Well, Ky covers the Sixers for USA Today, the Sixers Wire. You can find him writing 11 articles per day. Jason.
That's not an exaggeration either.
Jason is like a dog. I don't really know what he does for a living. It's kind of like it's a mystery to me still. I think he covers the Sixers in his free time for both the Painted Line.
It's free time.
And 97.3 ESPN. I also, as you know, cover the Sixers for the Painted Lines. Follow us on Twitter, JNBA, Ky_Carlin, and then me at NBA Krell. As always, we do appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and listen on Apple Pods, SoundCloud, wherever you get your pods. As always, thank you for tuning in, everybody, and have a good night.